on that we're streaming. We're streaming and why do I have my headset on? There's not going to be any audio. Alright, so we're streaming. I'm going to go ahead and tell the world because everybody wants to know. I guess I better open up Twitter in order to do that, though. Give me a moment. Streaming? Indeed of. Gonna make spaceships. Ditto. And ditto. Oh, that looks like broken. That's fine. That's fine. So we are, I am a little bit burned out and tired, but I think that might be because I've been playing too much BattleTech, which I really like. So I'm going to try and get back into the swing of things by doodling, 3D doodling. I need a lot more kinds of spaceship parts, and I figure I might as well go ahead and doodle them into existence live on camera, because that's fun, right? And you guys, if you're around, can give me all sorts of comments about the sorts of spaceship stuff you want to see. Right now, my viewership has gone down rather considerably because one of the big ways that I used to notify people that I was streaming was by posting a video to YouTube. But YouTube has opted everybody into not receiving updates. So nobody gets those updates anymore. If you thought you wanted to see my stream and thought you were waiting for a YouTube video that linked to it and you didn't see that, check your settings, because YouTube has probably opted you out of receiving updates. This is their Facebook ploy, so that they can just feed you whatever they want, and your stream doesn't matter and your favorites don't matter. An annoying situation, to be sure. So, in order to create a new spaceship part, I'm thinking we'll start with something round. And we're going to want to be in point mode and scale it up to, like, big, right? And what I think I'll do is I'll sketch together a tower ship, a long, thin ship, a column ship, if you will, whatever you want to call them. The sort of thing you're more likely to see in Kerbal. Ah! I'm gonna drop my glasses. I'm pretty sleepy. It's really nice out, though. So if we're talking about tower ships, then basically the idea is that they have a nose and then a column and then an end, and everything that happens is in between those. So we'll just go ahead and set up that just as an arbitrary thing. So if we take a look, this is now 2 units wide. See? Oh, it's not. I screwed that up. Scale 0.25. Yeah, there it is. So now it's 2 units wide, and that's a good, nice column. Anything that's an even number of units wide is good, because it allows you to build arbitrary connections. As long as you know how big the tower is supposed to be, you can build whatever connections you want. Now, usually you go with units being meters, but in this case, it's probably hundreds of meters. At the very least, it's dozens of meters. It's very large. This is not to scale. I have got to wake up. I'm sorry if I'm making everybody sick by moving things around too much. I did some ZBrushing, and now my camera skills are all ZBrush centric and messed up. So what we need to do is move it so that this baseline is at 0. And that way, whenever we connect something to it, we don't have any problems, because it's going to be a nice 0, 0 connection. So yeah, that's at the baseline there. And that means that we can make this whatever we want, as long as we don't disrupt this line here. So let's go ahead and name it something. And we'll name it Nose A. We can change the name later if we want. But if I want to make it a little bit more interesting, then I can add all sorts of detail work into Nose A here. There's a lot of ways to add in detail work, but my favorite is to cut most of the ship away. Delete it, and then add in a mirror modifier. just because that means that we can do a whole lot more without having to mirror everything ourselves. There are still a couple of errant verts, as you can see. Those go away when we remerged everything, but there's no reason to leave them there. It's not difficult to get rid of them. The other thing that I like to do when I'm doing this sort of stuff is I like to edit this surface here because that creates 4 nice elements. What I'd really like is radial symmetry with more than 4 nodes. I'd like to be able to select radial symmetry here. I don't believe that's an option. Maybe it will be in 2.8. That would be nice. I know you can do screw, but that's not the same as radial symmetry. I don't see any radial symmetry. I guess I could do radial symmetry by manually cutting it and then duplicating it. You want to try that? Let's go ahead and try that. So if we pull up our calculator and we take a look at 360, if we wanted to do radial symmetry by, say, 6, that would mean that we need a 60-degree angle for our setup. So in order to do that, we would want to cut this down to a 60-degree angle. And you might be wondering, what's a 60-degree angle exactly? And that's a good question. It's like this. But I don't know whether or not we have something that is 60-degreeable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alt-D. That will create a linked duplicate, I think. And then we're going to rotate 60. There we go. There's our 60 degrees, right? But as you can see, that's not aligned. And that's a shame. We're not going to be able to use this after all. After I spent all of that 5 seconds making it. So we're going to create a new circle, and this time we're going to make sure that this is multiplicable by 6. And 64 is not multiplicable by 6, so we're going to go with 60. And since we have 60, then we'll just have 10 elements, and that will be a nice, easy way to figure it out. So we'll just Alt-D this and then rotate 60, and then we'll just make sure that they line up. And we can do that pretty easily by selecting just arbitrary elements and then deleting them. And I think that's correct. Yeah, good. So that's a 60-degree element. Unfortunately, because this is not a circle, it doesn't scale correctly, but we can do that by merging it with by centering it on the 3D cursor. And that will allow us to pretend that this circle is still a circle. It will, however, screw up our Z, our vertical axis. We'll have to be careful about that. But for now, we're going to want to scale down 0.25. There is our... Oh, this is actually already at a 2-meter scale, so we'll just zoom it up and flip it. And we're going to want to expand it and just drag it down to something reasonable here. We can also scale and then hit Shift Y or Shift Z to make it so that it doesn't scale on that one axis, but there we go. That's Y, that's Z. There we are. So if we E, come on, E, and then scale Shift Z. There we go. And you can see that we're keeping a nice round shape, even though we are only doing it with a quarter or less than a quarter of the ship. And this is not ideal. There are better ways to do this, but there are also worse ways to do it. So we're going to go ahead and scale 0 this and then merge them all together. And then we'll just move it manually up, so that it is the center. Here we are. So now we'll just leave this and we'll just duplicate this and then rotate 60. Nope. There we are. And then we'll just grab both of these and Alt duplicate and rotate Z 120. And then we'll just grab this last one, Alt D, rotate Z -60. There we go. So now we have our 6-way symmetry, but that's really a lot of annoying effort, and that's too bad. I would like it to be a lot simpler. Another problem with this is that what we've done is we've set up something where it's on an angle. What we should have done is set it up so that it was on a flat surface so that we could do our editing like here. Fortunately, they are all identical, so we can edit this flat angle into however we want it to be, and it will mirror correctly. So we'll just go ahead and grab these, and then we'll scale X0 them. That's scale X2. Actually, It makes it kind of like a flower. There we go. And if we bring that in, then we can get a nice flat element with the 6-way mirroring that looks pretty decent, don't you think? And we're going to want to turn this into some kind of cool bay windowy sort of thing. The problem is that this dome up front is intended to be armored, just because, you know, you might hit meteors or whatever. So we don't want the bay windows to look out the front of the ship. We want them to look out the sides. And for that, we're going to want to make this area the one that we actually end up editing. Come on, there we are. And that doesn't seem even, does it? Oh, there is no plane that is directly on the 0. That's fine. I'll have to remember that. That center line is actually on 0 right there. But what we need to do actually is cut this before we do any of that crap. And then we'll just and we're going to need to cut here too, I suppose. And then there we go. So we can turn this into our bay window relatively easily simply by extruding it and then scaling either up or down as we prefer. I think that it's probably better to scale it down because it gives it a little bit of an inset appearance and there's no chance of the armor getting hit. But if I scale it up, I can do some interesting stuff. So for example, if I move this out and then scale it down on the y-axis, like so, and then scale it down on the z-axis, like so, we can get something that's projected out like this. But what we can do is we can create an armor projection that just caps it off and prevents it from getting hit. And that'll give us some nice basic angular stuff going on in the middle there. Downside of that is that I think it's a little bit too annoying. So let's go ahead and undo all of that. Now that I know what we want to do, I have to do it a little bit differently. And that is that we've got to put in another cut. There we go. Because I need a flat space there or else it will look bad. So now we'll just extrude it out like this and then scale it down on the y-axis. There you go. That should be fine. I don't think we need to do any other scaling. Just grab all of these. Come on. Obey me, fingers. And extrude them straight out, scale them down on the y-axis. And in order to create a little bit of a nice groove, we're going to go ahead and just do this. And that will allow us to have a sort of nice jagged sort of flavor here. But you can see how this flat area doesn't really serve very well in terms of how it's going to look in the final version. So we're going to need to raise some of these elements up to really give it a feel for being armor plated, you know? So something like this makes a lot of sense. And then even a little bit more than that, maybe. There we go. And that means that we're going to want to highlight the gap between them. So we're just going to grab... Oh, I see. The faces are on opposite sides. That's fine. We're just going to grab these elements here. And extrude them inward. But you can see how what we get at the corners there is something pretty bad, where we get extra faces. That's something that we're going to have to worry about. We're going to need to have to worry about whether we want to or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a cursor in the middle there and tell it to move towards the cursor when we do this. And you can see how when we do that, we get this set up here. So rather than extruding, it would be best if we were to bevel. Like so. And then we can just hit Alt and grab these elements. And then when we just, not extrude, but scale, we can scale them down towards the center line and they will move in tandem. But we're not going to want to scale them on the Z-axis just because the Z-axis is a little special. You can see that we're scaling some stuff down here, and we don't want to do that because these are exempt. They're the joins where it merges with the next spaceship, and we don't want it to, or the next component, we don't want it to have any sort of silliness there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try and scale them up on their individual axes, and to do that we're going to switch over into individual origins, and scale them up. It's not really doing too hot at that though, is it? Well, I guess what we could do is, I'm trying to think of the way to make this work, but I guess that's okay, to be honest. That's fine. We'll go with this kind of flowery appearance. Now it looks kind of strange because we haven't smoothed any of the faces, so let's turn on auto smoothing and see if we can get it to feel a little bit more nice. This cone here is obviously not how we want it to look, so we're going to just go ahead and fix that now. And the way we're going to do that is to extrude this straight up on this axis, like so. And there's going to be some stuff left over, so we'll just get rid of that. Extruding this straight up will allow us to do some stuff to make this try and be a little bit more interesting, right? I think it looks like we've got some doubles, so let's remove some doubles. No? Well, either way, if we tell it to smooth these verts, you can see how we get this jagged response because these are not really circular. So what do we do in order to get rid of that? What do we do to make this work? Well, I think we can delete this entire thing here. And then what we'll do is we'll grab this element from the bottom and we'll duplicate it and move it up. And then we'll merge it and the edge like so. And now we've got a nice round element up here at the top. But again, we're going to have to make it so that it merges with that 3D cursor when we're talking about scaling, because otherwise it's going to scale and it's going to lose its roundness. We could also do like a mirror merge, but then cutting it back apart again later would be a pain in the butt. So, you know, basically I want to make this like a cap. So we'll make it come in nice and close like this. And then we'll extrude it and scale it up on this axis here. And then we'll extrude it, and then we'll extrude it, and again, scale it. Nope, that's not going to work. In order to create a cap, we're going to need to put some stuff directly in the middle. So again, we're just going to extrude, and then we're going to merge at cursor, and then move it up. Boom. And now to make this circular element work well with the rest of this ship, we've got to make sure that it feels like it's really armoring the ship. And to do that, we're going to do the same thing we did before, where we create some kind of extrusion. In order to make this extrusion feel the same, we're going to want to deselect some of this stuff. But I think we're going to keep the second level. We're going to just get rid of the first level, and then we'll extrude this. And you can see how that naturally extrudes down, because the normal for that entire face is facing downwards. And that's what we want, so that's good. We'll keep it like that. And I'll just move it up a touch so that it's not quite as impacting down here. Yeah, that's probably basically how I want it to be. The only problem with this is that we don't have any kind of clear idea of it being plating. It doesn't feel like plating, if you know what I mean. So we're going to go ahead and produce a cut. And then we're going to grab this, and we're going to hit GG and move it until it is more or less round, like so. And then we're going to go ahead and take the whole thing and move it out. Like that. And what we can do is we can grab this plate here and this plate here, and we can extrude them. And then what we'll do is we'll move them towards the other side. So if we do it like that, gy 0.1, too much, gy negative 0.05, and then this one, gy 0.05. So what I'm trying to do is create a feeling like armor plate, and I think the way to do that is to grab the entire armor plate like so, and then we'll just extrude it up a touch and then scale it up on the y-axis, which should be like that. And then we'll just take this edge here and move it on the x-axis so that it isn't quite so sharp. And we're going to scale it down on the y-axis so that it isn't quite so evil looking. Move it up. There we go. It really looks like a flower at this point, which is fine. But we have one issue, and that is right here. This right here. So we're going to want to take that and cut it like this. And that should help our topology be not quite as crap. And we'll just tell it that those are crispy. Yeah, that works. All right, so now we've got this set up, and I accidentally scaled these lines down here at the bottom, which I didn't want to do, and that ended up causing me some issues. That's unfortunate, but I can always put in a new circle, and that's what we'll do right now. We'll go ahead and just create a new circle of size 60 and just stick it right there. And then what we'll want to do is delete all the parts of the circle that aren't in our setup. But the problem is that all of these are kind of merged together and it's a little hard to see what's going on. So we're going to move it aside so that we can delete the pieces that we need to delete. Oh, my stomach's suddenly doing backflips. I guess that vegetarian restaurant was too greasy. It was the only place I could find that was not so packed I couldn't eat there. I guess there might have been a reason for that. Boom. And so now what we've got is a new circle that is correct for our setup. And we're going to grab the old circle, which is right here. No, come on. Oh, it's actually fine. I see. The old circle didn't get dented. It was just this one region. So we don't have to worry about it after all. That's... We'll just take this down and then move it up so that we don't have quite as much confusion. And then if I remove doubles here, I get rid of almost all of them, but we got these two faces, these two edges, and those are bad, so we'll get rid of them. There we are. And we'll put you back. Bump. So I don't like how this window doesn't look like a window, so we're going to make it look like a window. And the easiest way to do that is, of course, beveling. Bevel. Shoop. There we go. And in order to give this a nice sense of being cut into the surface of the ship, we're going to want to take this outer edge and bevel it as well, like so. But you can see how if we do that, we end up causing some harm to the topology of the outside here. You can see that, how it stretches those so they're no longer square. In order to prevent that, what we're actually going to want to do is cut around the window. Unfortunately, we can't do that after having beveled, so we have to do it before beveling. There we are. And now we can bevel. And we're going to want to remove doubles because I beveled to a point where they collided. And then here, this little pane, we can make it a different material. We can extrude it. Let's go ahead and just extrude it so that it goes inwards a little bit. And then we'll just move it manually in. This is not the right, hold on. This one's the correct one over here, right? Yeah. I was working on one that wasn't on the axis plane, so it was like not giving me the option to move things. So we'll just move it back and then scale it down on the z-axis. There we are. And that'll give us a nice deep inset border around this window. But I think this window is still a little bit too gentle, so I'm going to select the entire face of it and bevel the entirety of it, which creates a lot of extra noise, as you can see. But it will also soften the window considerably, which should give us a much more rounded feel. But that edge is a problem, so we're going to have to select it as well. There we go. Nice soft windows. We still have a couple of little things that are sharp. I don't like that. Maybe we'll have to do something besides bevel it. Sorry, I'm just trying to think about the best way to make this look a little bit more window-like. And I think the easiest thing to do would be to add merge topology right here so that it doesn't create a crease, because the crease is the problem. There we go. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, it's still noticeable. Okay, so that's not better. I guess it might be okay if we just grab the outer edge. Yeah, that crease is really wicked. I can't really deal with it unless I rip this apart and put it back together, and I don't want to go to that much effort. Could I just scale this down on the x-axis, on the y-axis, on the z-axis? All the axes. Scale it down everywhere. All right, so I guess I will just mark it crisp and call it a day. Sharp. Still got sharp here, too. Come on, Craig. It's been so long since I did anything that I am terribly, terribly bad at everything now. All right, that's good enough. And then we're going to want to put in some stuff down here to make it look like it actually has a point and isn't just arbitrary. So for that, we're going to... Oh, MyFuzz says, I'm getting notifications about the stream from the iPhone app. Test. I don't know how long you waited for me to read out your comments. Sorry, I'm not as aware of things as I should be. But you're definitely in the stream now. So if we were to pull out something like this, then what we could do is make this into like a standing underslung set of rooms or something similar. Obviously, they need to be adjusted because they're not the right shape. There we go, something like that. And then this over here, we can pull it back. Now, the problem is that what I did is I made them quite small, but that's fine. We can put windows on the sides, maybe. That would look cool. If I put in a cut here, you can see how the topology flows. So in order for me to put in a window that looks good on this part, we're going to have to put in some complicated topology. So we'll bevel, and we'll use the bevel. Oh, I can't bevel it. Okay, so we'll cut, and then we'll cut. And then we're going to want to cut here. And then we're going to want to take this and extrude it down. And then we're going to want to take the well, it has to be on the both sides, doesn't it? Sorry. Take this and then extrude it down. And then we're going to want to fix it so that it is window shaped. To be honest, this isn't too bad for a window shape on a spaceship, but I think I want to bring it a little bit more even. Not a whole lot, just enough, like that. And then we will inset and make it look like a window. Like that. And then here on the outside, we'll give it a bay window. Because bay windows are nice. Everybody likes bay windows, I hope. There you go. Bay window. All right. So now we've got something that looks like it's some kind of daisy, and it's inhabited. So we've got an inhabited flower, which is nice. What I don't like is this part here, where it's got this groove that comes down and gets screwed up. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide that groove by extruding out a new set of elements, and we'll do that so that it doesn't interfere with the connector. Now the problem is that we have a situation where this is at the edge and it's not behaved very well, as you can see. So there is the situation where this six-fold geometry may not end up working out for us if we do it like this. If we extrude, we keep it fairly close to even, but there's definitely some issues. So what might be best is for us to merge all of these pieces together. I think that's all of them. Yeah. And so now we've got one giant piece, and we can extrude these, and they'll all be the same thing. First, we're going to want to, well, let's just test it. Did they? Okay, so they stayed separate. That's fine. We can just merge them like so. And now it is all even Steven, but we've got this issue where these need to be selected, and there's really no easy way to do it, because unfortunately for us, Blender's selection system doesn't have a radial option, so we're just going to select them manually. With this many, it's not that big a deal. Then we'll extrude out, like so. And we'll want to select these upper points. Now, the good news is I believe that these can be just selected using a select similar with a normal with either a normal. Well, let's try normal first. Okay, so normal doesn't work because we've got some other stuff with the same normal. Really? Okay. So undo. And I guess we'll just go for area. No. Perimeter. Seriously? Come on. Coplanar. Yeah, that seems to have worked. Good. And we'll just extrude those straight up on the z-axis and have them go into the surface. Perfect. And then we'll just grab these, Shift-G, coplanar, and that will allow us to modify this. And if we bring it down, I guess what I want to do is just select this outside edge. Face angles? No. Guess I'll do it manually. Oh, wait. Nope. Okay. I was hoping that I could do it more cleverly, but it doesn't look like I can. That's a shame. I'll do it manually. This is why you very rarely see symmetry in anything other than bilateral in Blender, because it is just a pain in the ass. There we go. Perfect. So there we've got a daisy head, and I just kind of threw that together to have some fun, to warm up, to try and shake off this exhaustion. We'll see whether or not that works, but I think I need to adjust it. So if we grab these and then we do a Shift-G coplanar, no, that's not going to work. Shift-G area, nope, Shift-G. I guess maybe if I grab just the tippy top up here. Shift-G. Oh, well, hold on. If I do it like that, I can just... There we go. And I can just grab them in here, like so. Shoop. I seem to have caught a couple of spares somehow. Inside of these windows, huh? Yeah, they were just in the way and they ended up being annoyingly placed. Was there another one? Yeah, there is. It's over there. Okay. Come on. Would have been easier to manually select them at this point. I probably could just use hide. That's fine too, though. We'll go ahead and try and make this work by scaling it up, but not on the z-axis. There we are. Plus scale, not on z. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Well... I guess it's fine like this. All right, so let's assign some materials to it so we can see what's going on. We're going to want to create some new ones because this is a new file and there's nothing around here. We're going to want hull. We're going to want heavy hull. We're going to want glass. So let's go ahead and sign these up as specific colors just so that we can see what's going on. Do it like that. And we'll make glass be a blue and we'll have it glow. There we are. Now assigning these is a little bit tedious just because of the complexity of this structure and the fact that we merged it all together rather than keeping it as 6 separate objects. But, you know, what we'll try and do is get it to, maybe we can do some select similar stuff if we're lucky. We'll see. It does not look hopeful, does it? Well, I think the easiest way to make this work a little bit better would just be to hide a vast amount of this spaceship. And that way we can select with a bit more impunity. This is the only places, these are the only places that are going to have glass. So we'll select it all, and then we'll hit minus. Okay, so minus isn't, there it is. And then that should bring us down into areas that are mostly glass. And that's most of them, so let's go ahead and assign the glass there. There are just a little bit of extra space here, which I guess it's fine. We'll assign it as glass, and then we'll fix some of these things that are obviously broken. And we need to assign these as glass on the sides. Can I get the Shift-G area? Well, that's fine. Glass is good. And then we'll fix it down here. So unfortunately, we can't select. That's fine. We'll just grab this inner edge on all of them like this. Hit plus, and then tell it that that's hull. This whole thing is hull. And then we just have a little bit left. Hull. And then just this last little piece. There's got to be a better way to do this, but I'm afraid that I don't know Blender well enough to really understand how to select things in any sort of decent way. It's always just annoying. Either way, that's now our glass, so we're going to unhide everything. And we're going to want to assign our heavy hull elements at this point. And generally speaking, the easiest way to do heavy hull is just to think of it as ambient occlusion. It's not how you really want to do it all the time, but it's the easiest way to do it when you are trying to do things fast, as you can just think of it as ambient occlusion. The deep spaces are heavier and darker. And we'll also want to do it around the edge here. And then here, we'll just undo it. And then lastly, I think we want it beneath this. So I think all of that should be heavy hull. It seems a little bit much, don't you think? Yeah, it's definitely too much. We just really want this section here. So let's go ahead and see if we can select it. Can we get normal? No. Because it's not pointed straight down, unfortunately. Area. All right, so we'll just go by and select like this. There we go. So this element here is heavy hull, but as you can see, there are portions of it that aren't heavy. So we'll just select them. And here as well. Oh. There we go. All that's heavy hull. There we are. So now you can see that it's starting to take a little bit of shape here. I'm not sold 100% on all of this, but do I want these to be heavy hull? Yeah, I definitely want those to be heavy hull. So we'll go ahead and just select them all. Do 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 do. Heavy hull. All right. And we're going to want to unwrap this. I should have unwrapped it before I merged it. Now what we're going to have is a problem where each of these is going to have a slightly different UV map. So it may be annoying. It might actually be better to cut it back into 6 pieces and then re-merge it. How annoying. Well, I could always split it in half. I mean, it's still... this is still symmetrical on the 4 axes. It's just got 1.5 per quadrant. So we could just cut it, but that would mean that some of the quadrants would look very strange. Well, whatever. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we'll just do an arbitrary unwrap just to see whether or not it works, and then we'll save it. Well, I don't want to name this, don't we? I guess I thought I named it, but I didn't. I'm gonna call this Nose A. Pop on over into Unity and put it into the game world just to see how it looks. News. Well, we're going to want to switch scenes. So do we have just an arbitrary garden? Here we are. Ship graveyard. Ship planning. There we are. Whoa. I don't know why I'm so tired. It's probably just because it's nice and I went outside and walked around in the sun a bunch. God, that makes me tired for some reason. So I called these tower ships. Drop it in. Let's go take a look. So there it is inside of Unity, with just absolute garbage texture. Materials on it. Let's see what we can do here. If we drop some more materials on it, I think that the prox hull doesn't actually have a texture. We could add a texture to it, like a car interior. I didn't make the car interior texture, though. I think that's something I imported from somewhere else. I got the surface detail textures. We can add in surface detail normals as well, except for the prox hull can't take a normal map for complicated and annoying reasons. But you can see how this is not something which mirrors across all 6 elements, and that means that it's going to look a little silly regardless of what we do. So, you know, that's never going to be great. We have a couple of other kinds of textures we can use. We can work on exactly how we want it to look later, but I do need it to be... There we go, hull, and then we'll have heavy hull, which is pink. It shouldn't be pink. I probably just fat fingered it when I was working on it. There we are. That's better. Now, the reason it's not super dark is because when you scan something, it goes dark. So if everything is dark, then you can't tell what you've scanned and what you haven't. It'll still be plenty dark in the actual scene. And then glass. Doop. That glass is not very interesting, is it? Does it not have any material? So if we grab this, we can add in that same material, surface details, and a surface normals. That unwrap was really garbage. Let's go ahead and re-unwrap it. This time we'll pay a little bit more attention. So I think what we're going to have to do is cut it way, way down. And the easiest way to do that is to just start to cleave it in pieces. I'm going to create a duplicate in case I do something wrong. So first things first, let's get rid of half of it. And you can see that this is quite close to the edge at times, so we need to be careful there. Then we're going to get rid of half of it again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of half of it again, but we need to cleave it along this line here. So we're going to just rotate it around its individual origin by 15 and by 30. There it is. And then we'll just delete this. Boom. And then we have just this one little segment. And I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. We can adjust some of the things that we wanted to adjust now that we're here. There's no reason to be shy about it, right? We're going to name this nose a piece. Because we're not going to want to actually lose this. This is a very valuable little unit to work with. But what we'll do is we will Alt-D it. And when we Alt-D it, you can see how we get a duplicate that's mapped to it. We don't even need to Alt-D it. We could have just normal D'd it. But what we need to do is scale Y -1, and that'll give us a nice crisp edge like this. Now the nose piece we're going to store for later. These backups are the thing that we're going to want to... oh, that didn't work. So we're going to want to apply the scaling. Okay, so we're going to delete that. And we're just going to Shift D. Yeah, scale Y -1, apply scaling. And that, of course, inverts all of our normals, but that's fine. And we'll join. And we ended up modifying the original. So we're going to want to do a Shift D to duplicate and then delete the original, just so that it doesn't keep modifying the original. It's pretty easy to cleave it back if I need to, but, you know. And we'll just do Shift D and then rotate 180 on the Z axis. Join, and then Shift D, rotate Z60. Shift D, rotate Z60. And that should work. Just grab it, join it all together, and oh my God, did I forget? I forgot to, after all of that annoying work, I forgot to UV unwrap it. Can you believe it? Undo, there we are. So delete, 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 UV unwrap. Idiot. Shift D, scale Y, -1, apply, scale, flip, join, Shift D, rotate Z 180, join, D, rotate Z60, D, rotate Z60, join, join. And this will be our nose A piece. Perfect. Save it and go back over into Boof. And you can see that we got a little bit of damage to it because when you go from having a single element in your file to having several, Unity imports it differently, which is a little bit annoying, but that's okay. We'll just grab it and try it again. Boom. So when we compare the old and the new, they're visually identical when they have this material on them because this material has no textures. But if we were to modify it so it did, you would quickly see that they're different. Unfortunately, we can't. We have to drop in a new texture. How brilliant. So drop in that prox hull. The prox hull is untextured, that's right. Drop in the hull. There we are. Hull and hull. Then we'll do heavy hull and heavy hull. And then we'll do glass and glass. So you can see how one of these, that's interesting. Is this a world coordinate texture? No, that's interesting. The UV map shouldn't have this. This shouldn't be possible. It should be mirrored across every single corner. But instead, what we're getting is something quite complicated here. I don't understand how that's working. Oh, this is a ship Greebler. Yeah, so this is actually local coordinate based materials. This texture is not UV coordinate. It uses UV coordinates, but it's not a UV coordinate material. So the result is that it's ignoring our UV coordinates, and it's using local coordinates instead. So if we wanted to have a material that is UV coordinate, I could drop in something else. It doesn't really matter what. A cloth. Of course, the cloth texture is non-existent. This is a very old, unused material. There we go. So now you can see. What we did is we changed the UV maps so that they were exactly mirrored across every single one of these surfaces. And that means that what we end up with is something that has a nice repetitive look. Now the actual tiling involved here is a little bit iffy, so let's just go ahead and change it so that it looks a little bit more like what we want it to look like. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to look like it has some sort of texture to it. Now right now this is a very aggressive normal map, so let's bring the normal map way down so that it's not quite so stark. There we are. And that means that we have something that actually looks like a ship. Now the cloth texture is completely smooth. It's a sharp texture without any sort of metallic feel to it. And we could change that into a more metallic feeling ship, but we don't have a sky. So when we do that, it's just going to be black because we don't have a star map or anything, so the reflections aren't showing up at all. And that's obviously not really what we want. And it looks like this isn't going to work with quite this either, because it's got an offset that doesn't end up working out very well for us. Yeah, it's a little bit more like it. All right, so we're just playing around a little bit. Oh, a Noige Master came by probably a long time ago. Sorry about that. Hello, Nijo Meister. Mifa says you can have the Unity import the stuff and materials automatically. Yeah, except for I don't know what materials I want it to be. I think you should change the brown walls to look black. Well, the reason that this heavy hull isn't black is because in the game, when you scan something, it turns black. So if there is a large amount of dark area on an object, you might think that it has been scanned. But for now, we'll go ahead and do that. We'll just set it up so that it looks a little bit... now, in theory, the normal map should be visible. I just don't see it. It's just that it was offset funny. So we'll go ahead and set it up so that the normal map has a nice crisp line right down the middle there. And then we'll just adjust the Y Let's invert the normal map. Doop, doop. I guess inverting it doesn't actually work very well. So that's fine. Leave it like this. But one thing we can do is we can make this metallic, because a black set here would actually be fine. If we do that, though, we're going to want to make it a lot less red. That's good enough. The glass is supposed to be an emissive texture, or an emissive surface, but unfortunately, that's not going to actually work in the game, because for two reasons. First is that this is a giant surface in the game, so it would just be a giant glowing surface. The player's ship is like tiny in comparison. The second reason is because emissive objects are really screwing up in my game world. They're not working right, and I haven't figured out why. So what this actually needs to be is an actual pane of glass that is on top of something else. Oh, that's not the new glass shader. That's the old glass shader, right? Why is this not... Why can't I edit this? It must be being imported. Well, let's just drop in a glow for now. Very, very bright, right? Is there a better Prox blue, maybe? That's Prox blue, is it? Whew. There. That's blue. Too blue. That's good enough. That's good enough for us. So we'll leave it like that. But the idea here is that this is just a rough mock-up, but you can see how this sort of approach would work. Let's go ahead and finish up with the rest of the ship. Now, one thing we're going to have problems with is that this join area here is very, very blunt, and it doesn't really work in terms of having a surface that connects well. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a lip, and then we're going to move on to the next element. So in order to create a lip, there's a lot of approaches you can use, but definitely the one we're going to use here is we're going to extrude and then just scale on everything but Z. As long as we're scaling away from the shared center point, because we are finished with the mirroring, we can do it like this without too much difficulty. Now we're going to go and assign it all the heavy hull, just to make it feel a little bit nicer. And then we're just going to grab the edges and bevel. Yep. There we go. So now what we've got is a cap, and there's no surfacing on the inside of it. It's just something that allows us to create connections between one object and the next. So now what we need is a column. Now the columns, there would be like hundreds of different kinds, right? But for the sake of just mocking something up, we're only going to create one. So the columns also need to have 60, or it's not that critical because these are going to be, these have hubs, you know, they're going to have those caps on them. So it's not absolutely critical that it be 60, but 60 is what we used before, so it makes sense to do it again. There we are. Perfect. So if we just think of that as as an example of how our hubs would work, we can use that just as a placeholder and keep moving along, right? So the other thing we need to do is we need to have an end on it, a cap on the end. Wow, why am I so tired? I need a nap. So I think what we're going to do to get the cap on the end is we're going to grab it from this guy. And we'll just duplicate and then punch it out. And then we'll rotate X 180, and there we have it. So exact same lip that we had on the top, except now it's pointing down. And what sort of engine are we going to use? Well, here's the thing. If we have a ship that's a column, we need to make sure that we can add in engines along the column. And the only way to do that is if the engine in the back doesn't have much width to it. It has some, but it doesn't have so much that it gets iffy, right? So what we're going to want to do is keep it fairly tight. So maybe no more than that. Even that might be a little bit much. And then we'll pull it down, and then that's going to be our engine. But we're going to want to do the same thing we did above. It's going to want to be a 6-fold engine. And as before, we're going to want to cut it and do that now, I suppose. And if we rotate 45, was it? Yeah. Then we can cut again. Wait, did that not work? That did not work. Undo. All right, let's try it again. I screwed it up somewhere. So basically we want these to be all lined up. So if we rotate around the center point interior, I'll be able to see it. There we are. And that is one tiny quadrant, 1/12 of the engine. And it's not lined up very well with any given axis. So we're going to want to rotate it. Was it 30 degrees? No, I don't know what happened there. Why isn't rotate working? There we are. And then we'll just bring these under control. Just drag them all in so that they are flat. Peter says, a few days ago I found a weird bug in Unity where I had a mesh collider not visible in the inspector window, but it still collided with stuff and had the non-convex error when I tried to add rigid body components. I never added the collider. Did this ever happen to you? I reported it, but they said they couldn't reproduce it. No, that sounds an awful lot like something that went wrong with your project in specific. The rigid bodies don't randomly add themselves, but they can end up adding themselves to the project if you are adding in primitives. The problem is that all the primitives come with convex rigid bodies. There's no, as far as I know, there's no primitive with a concave rigid body. So I'm not sure where you got it. It's not something that should happen. Right, so what I need to do is make this into an engine, and there's a couple of ways of doing that. We're going to want to just have it duplicated and scale y -1, just so that we can see what's going on while we're editing. And we're going to want to edit relative to the 3D cursor, just as before. And we can edit and extrude like this. Woo. That's, oh, the 3D cursor is nowhere near being in the center of the... That's weird. There we are. That's better. There we go. And then we're going to want to extrude down and then scale, and then extrude and then scale on all the axes. And then we're going to merge and pull it down. Yep, there we are. More or less. And now we'll just go ahead and create an intake for, or rather an exhaust for our engine, not an intake. The opposite of an intake, you know what I mean. And you can see that we've got a plane in the middle here. We're just going to delete that. We don't need it. And that's going to be our engine, at least partially. We're going to want to make it look a little bit cooler, so we're going to add in just a little bit of something to give it that little bit of interesting flavor, right? There we go. We'll just massage this until it looks like we want it to look. There we are. And now this plane here is garbage. We don't need it. Just delete it. Wow, that's not the right face. Oh, yeah. Doof. That seems fine. The last thing we need to do is put an engine here, but we'll do that after we rejoin everything. For now, we'll go ahead and UV unwrap it as it is, just so that we'll have some reasonable UV unwrap skills. And then we're going to want to delete the mirror and Shift D, scale Y 0, negative, scale X negative 1, scale Y negative 1. It's not moving around the center. Individual origin, scale Y negative 1. There we go. And we'll apply that scaling and then flip all of our elements. Join, and then duplicate, rotate Z 180. Join, and then duplicate, rotate Z 60. Duplicate, rotate Z 60. And then we'll just join all of those together. And there we go. We've got ourselves an engine. It looks like we've got some issues where, ooh, that wasn't what I wanted, where we've got some deviation. You can see how we've got some cuts here where we've got some problems and they don't quite work out. That shouldn't be too bad. We can join them, but that would take a lot of effort. It's actually probably easier if, can we not bevel, face loop. That's not going to work. Okay, so it looks like we might have to join them manually, which is a real pain in the ass. Really? I don't want to join them manually. Let's see if we can undo all that stuff now. So the problem is that is not exactly on the plane. So if we rotate Z30, we come along to a plane like so. And in order to make it stick, we can turn on mirror modifier with an... I have to apply, hold on, apply rotation. I have to then do a y-axis mirror with clipping turned on, and then I can just grab that and move it. Not all, not the entire thing. There we are, just like that. And that should work. I don't know what this is. A nose, I'll delete that. And then this, we'll go ahead and apply it. Boom. And then we'll Shift D and rotate 180. And then J, and then Shift D, and then rotate Z60, and then D, and then rotate Z60, and we're back where we started. All right. So now with everything working, we can remove doubles and it'll actually not have any weird gaps. But this centerpiece down here, we want that to be round. So we're going to grab this hoop off the top and duplicate it and drop it down. Yoop, like so. And then when we go down here to edit it, we can delete this center point. It's so dark. Why is it so dark down here? Hold on, I gotta see if I can, maybe it's just sunny outside so I can't see what I'm doing, but I cannot see jack shit. It is so hard to see what's going on. Let's go ahead and just add in some lights, maybe that'll help. The sun is now shining in my face, so, or it might be just that the material is dark. Are we using a dark material for this? It looks like we are. That was the problem. We were just using a dark material. All right, so now, with that in mind, we can just merge these two face loops. And then we don't need to worry about anything. We can just move it around until it feels right. So just bring it down and out a little bit, like so. And then we'll just bring it straight down. And then we will bring it in. And bring it up. Shiblooey, right? Let's go ahead and add in some armor plating. The problem, of course, being that we no longer have the nice six-way mirroring that we had before because I decided we didn't need it. So we're not going to want to worry about that too much. What we're going to do instead is select everything, and then we're going to try and do a checker deselect. The problem is the checker deselect is notoriously, so we're going to only select one of these, the top one. Then we're going to try a checker deselect, and we're going to try a checker deselect that ends up selecting a specific set. No, what'd I do? Stop that. So, I'm trying to figure out the best way to have this work. And the problem is that we're selecting 3 regardless of what we do here. And that's not what I want. Brilliant. Okay, so let's see whether or not we can just get it to select. Okay, so I selected a bunch of random stuff, but let's go ahead and just see how it looks. It looks dumb. I wish that Blender had such better select tools. Peter says he's going to sleep. I'm probably going to go to sleep soon too, even though it's nowhere near even dark outside. I'm just so tired. So if we were to deselect... I'm just trying to think of a way to get the mirroring to work, but I guess that's really not going to be easy. There's just too many annoying things to have to select and try and figure out how to get to work. So we're going to just select this midline for each of them. And then we're going to go down into median point and just scale it up. And that should just give us enough that it feels like it is properly set up, right? Yeah, it's more or less correct, except we don't want to scale it on the z-axis, just on the other 2. Boom. All right, so there's our engine. I think that we're going to want to do a little bit more work, so let's just modify it until it feels like I want it to feel. So this part here needs a little bit of work. We'll just grab it. After all that work, I really wish there was a radial symmetry option in Blender, because this is bullshit. I made a big mistake thinking I was going to do radial symmetry for these. I'm too used to working in other places. More or less. If I were to tell this to smooth them, yeah, that's better. Good. Last things last. Get beveled. All right, let's do some materials. Instead of glass, we're going to want to have a new material, which we'll call fire. And we'll just have that be not blue, because blue fire would be a little too hot for us. Red, that's good. And obviously, fire is just going to be for the internals. And now we're going to want to have some heavy hull, and I think that we're going to want to have a heavy hull anywhere that makes even the slightest bit of sense, because this is, after all, a rocket engine, and it's covered in soot, right? Well, we'll fix that up later. Now let's re-add the fire. Fire. There. All right. So now we have all of our stuff vaguely heavy hulled, but we don't have any. Oh, the reason it was all heavy hull before was because we were working off of this collar, and the docking collar was heavy hull. That's why it was all heavy hull. I remember now. Well, it needs to be heavy hull again. There we go. Now the question is, do we want to have any stripes, any heavy hull stripes? And I don't think we care. Let's go ahead and just try it out, see how this looks. We'll call this engine bay. And gotta go back into Blender and see how it all looks. Now obviously there's some work left to be done here. Let's just grab the elements out of the setup and drop them in to where they should be. There's our heavy hull. There's our cloth. And we don't have a prox interior. We want fire. I guess we'll just leave it. Well, there should be actually a fire. There should be some sort of thruster fire. But that's a transparency, so that's not what we want. There should be some kind of glowing. That's glow here. That's a white glow. That's not going to do anything. We'll just leave it like this, burned. That's fine for now. And I don't think that we have any way to make that stand-in piece look decent, so we'll just make it vaguely the same color, just because we haven't UV unwrapped it or anything. And you can see how using the same generic UV system, you can end up with something that looks like it's on purpose, and that's the way you work super fast. It has some serious drawbacks, like the fact that you have very little control over it and stuff like that. But if you're working real fast and just prototyping stuff up, that's how you do it. Oh, you know what happened down here? This is the part that we didn't UV unwrap because it wasn't part of the original object. This entire object set down here was added in after we joined them all together, and that means that they're all really badly stretched along the z-axis. So it's just an interesting look. I guess we'll leave it like that for now. Anyway, the real solution here would be that this would look more along the lines of, where's the z-axis? Why can't I see the stretch? That's interesting. I'm not sure why they sometimes show the stretch and sometimes don't. But it would be something along the lines of, this length. But each of these middle nodules would look like something else. Now, there are a lot of problems with this approach, and the biggest issue is that it looks very samey after a while. So, for example, this nose here, we probably follow it up with an even bigger bulk. But there's only so much you can do when your ships are all long, thin, spindly things. Now, the reason I was thinking about this is because I was playing Battletech, which I'm really enjoying. And all of their jump ships are like this. Battletech is an interesting visual situation because it's basically Voltron, right? Got the mechs. They're just Voltron-style mechs with very distinct arms and legs and torsos and heads. And then they have their spaceships, and the spaceships are sort of attempted to be drawn in the same style, but they're all round. So as far as I know, BattleTech is pretty much unique in terms of what it can get away with, visually speaking, because it can have ships that are all very round and repetitive, but because the focus isn't on just ship after ship after ship, and they're constantly throwing in variants like now you're in a dropship or now you're looking at mecha or whatever, you never get the feeling like all of their ships are repetitive or all of their mechs are repetitive because you're constantly seeing other things. Of course, if you are just seeing nothing but mech battles, the Voltron-style mechs do get pretty repetitive, especially if you're just in the middle range, because the middleweight mechs all look the same. But it is an interesting thing to think about, just in terms of what they can get away with by varying what sort of things you're looking at. Because, I mean, a mech is never going to look round, and it's never going to look tower style, because that's not how mechs look. So you can get away with using the same doodads, the same greebles, the same fundamental ideas, but because they're in different arrangements, you never get tired of them, and they never feel too repetitive. Anyway, my stomach is doing backflips, so I think I'm going to stop. Just as a reminder, if you didn't get notified about this and you use YouTube, you should check and see whether or not YouTube has opted you into not receiving notifications. I've got 5 viewers. That's unusual. Ever since YouTube did that, I generally get 2, but that's fine. I guess I can stick around for a little bit longer if anybody wants to ask questions or whatever, but I shouldn't have eaten what I did for lunch. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it's hard to get a feel for what that's going to look like unless we put in... Let's go ahead and do one more thing. Let's go ahead and do 2 more things. Let's go ahead and do 2 more things if my stomach lasts. I may end up shutting off the stream real quick and leaving all of a sudden, and you'll have to just accept my apologies if that happens. First, let's go ahead and create an engine setup. So the idea here is that this engine setup would be basically the same thing, but it would extrude out past the edges, and we would have like a chandelier-style engine. The only problem being, of course, that we want to cut into quarters, or into, not quarters, but, you know, distinct elements. So, delete. Delete. And I don't think we're going to bother rotating. I think it's these guys, isn't it? Nope, one too many. There we are. Doof, there we are. I believe that's correct. Let's go ahead and check. Duplicate, rotate 30. Rotate 60. Rotate 60? 60 is correct, isn't it? 60, 60, 60. Yeah, 6 times 60 is 300. Yeah, so that's incorrect. I did something wrong. So, undo. Oh, would you look at that? It's not even aligned properly. This set piece is pretty bad. Okay, so hold on. Let's go ahead and delete this because it's obviously just wrong. And we'll go ahead and duplicate it from this collar ring again. Come on. Oh, it's shift. Oh man, I am only half awake. I am so sorry, guys. It happens. There we are. And we'll just go ahead and make this ring. Did I forget to punch it out? Punch. There we are. Rotate or scale. Rotate X negative 180. And then apply rotation. And then that means that we'll just have a double color. And that'll look fine, right? No problems. But we're obviously going to want to do what I was trying to do before and cut it apart. So first things first, let's assign it something I can see. Yeah, yeah, that should work. And then we'll just... Hello? Okay. And if we cut it here, that would be it, right? Yeah, that's correct, I think. Yeah, good. So this is correct. This is how it's supposed to look. And what we're going to do is we're going to just make this into an engine. And that means that we're going to want to do some work in making it look good. We're going to want to go back to going towards the 3D cursor. And for some reason, I'm having the hardest time with the camera today. And as you can see, it is not moving towards the 3D cursor because the 3D cursor is off in the middle of nowhere instead of being at 0, 0, 0 like a good boy. There we are. So what we're going to want to do is actually scale it out and up and then extrude it straight up like this. And then we're going to want to grab the edge here. We have to be careful how we do this because we need to extrude straight out and not along the normals. Because if we extrude along the normals, we'll get a break in the middle and that's not great. But what we can do is we can grab the edges and just move them until it feels roughly how we want it to feel. And we're going to want to just continue to massage this until it's how we want it to be. And so we'll just scale it out like this, right? And then we'll carve a hole, and then carve another hole, and then we will have this be our engine, which we can extrude straight down. There we are. And then move straight out. And then scale it up on the x-axis. No, y-axis. Individual origins. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. And then we'll just pull this whole shebang out. We got some interior faces we're going to have to deal with there. That's fine. And then we'll want to grab these guys and pull them out separately. Not all of those guys, just these guys. Right, more or less. And then we'll carve, and then we'll grab. Yeah, more or less. And I keep saying more or less. I should probably stop when I say I'm going to stop, just because it's clear that I steadily lose my brain exactly when I think I will. I'm like, oh no, I can't concentrate anymore. Time to stop. I'll just go on for another 45 minutes and it will suck. So what we're doing right now is a little bit iffy because when we extrude here, there's no mirroring. So we're going to want to add in a mirror modifier, even though we're not going to use one, just so that we can have it with a clipping plane. Because if we do that, then we can get rid of all of these interior faces that we don't need. Let's go ahead and turn it off for a second. There we are. These faces here are all just garbage. I'll turn it back on. And now when we extrude here, we're going to be able to extrude without having to worry about accidentally splitting away from the seam. See? Nice. And then we'll just go ahead and extrude up and back and shrink. There we go. That's a really tight... See, when I was thinking of a chandelier, I was actually thinking of something a little bit different. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit different so that it's more like what I'm thinking of. Because what I was thinking of was something that was floating considerably further away from the center of the ship. Like this. Yeah, let's go ahead and try this on for size and see how we do. Yeah, so this is more like what I had in mind. Much, much further out. And it looks like we lost control over one of our faces here. I'll just pull that down manually. Not that it looks terrible like that, it's just not on purpose. So now let's go ahead and do something similar on purpose, and that would just be to connect up these elements, and we extrude straight down this axis, scale x 0, nope, scale y 0, my bad, and shrink it down along the z-axis, and just punch it on through. And you can see how it's a little bit wide. So what we're going to want to do is just scale it down on the x-axis until they fit. But I think it's currently... Oh, so the problem is that I'm only editing one of them, so that's fine. That's not actually a problem, it's just what's happening. There we are. And then we'll go ahead and cut this up so that it feels right. Nope, that's the wrong direction. There we are. That's a more correct direction. And you can see that what we're ending up with is something that's got a lot of skewing to it. So we're going to try and reduce that skewing a little bit. And then we'll do it again. There we go. But we're going to want to bevel both of these. Because otherwise it'll be really obvious that they are rather makeshift. So we'll just bevel. And there we go. And now we're going to need to add in our object here. Just duplicate it and move it on up. Like that. And maybe we'll put in like an engine tank or something, but for now we're just going to need to bridge those edge loops. There we go. And I think that the engine tank would go good right here. So what we're going to do is add in a circle that is like 12, 24. And then we're going to want to move it over here. And just keep it exactly on edge. So GX1, GZ, GY1. It's in the wrong corner of the world. That's fine. We just rotate it around the 3D cursor. And what we're going to want to do is just add this into our... There we are. Add this into our setup, and that means we're going to want to massage it until it is correct. And it's a little hard to tell exactly what's going on because there are so many moving pieces. As you can see, we've got a lot of overlaps happening because of the way that it's set up. And it's something where we want it to end up looking ideal, and because it's not exactly on axis, it doesn't look ideal. Now the reason it's not on axis is just because we screwed it up. So we're going to undo all of our movement, and what we're going to do is move it out just on one axis like this. And that would be something where we can set this up and it will look fine. And then we'll just, rotate it after the fact. But we probably should have chosen another axis. No, all of these axes are going to be iffy because of the way, just the way they are falling currently. That's fine. We'll deal with it in a minute once we have set this up to be the right size. And basically I'm judging against the corner there. So if we do it like this, it'll take up that area. And that will probably be okay. And then what we'll do is delete half of it. And then move it. So in order to move it, we'll rotate it around the 3D cursor by 60. And you can see how that ends up. Now the question is whether or not that's correct, but I'm pretty sure it is because it's linked up on all of the edges. So I think that is exactly what we're trying to do. The question is which of these is the active one. There, it's that one. So let's go ahead and turn this into some fuel tanks using some very basic extrusion and scaling stuff like this, right? And then we'll just extrude it. What I want to do is, well, for now it's fine. We'll just scale it like this, and then we can just grab the inside here and scale it down. And that should produce a unique look, don't you think? Yeah, should be fine. And then we'll want to just cap it off up here. Come on. There we are. So, if we want to cap it off, boom. All right, so it's a little bit weird looking, but I'm fine with that because I tried to make it a little bit weird looking. I'm just not sure if it's a little bit too weird looking. You know what I mean. Either way, it looks like we're going to need to just massage this a little bit because it's not exactly how I want it. So if we take a look at it from the side view like this, we are trying to get it so it's straight on, and each of these ticks is 30 degrees, right? So I believe that this is going to be instead of rotating, I want to Control-Shift-S, don't I? Yeah, there we are. There we are. Good. And then what we'll do is we'll just grab these interior faces and draw them straight back in. Unfortunately, it's at the wrong angle. That's fine. We'll leave it like that. We will leave it like that, and then we'll just move this up another notch. Oh, to be honest, that's probably fine. To connect up like that will hide a lot of our screwy elements. We still need to fix this part down here, though, so we're just going to extrude it and then scale it down on the global 3D cursor axis and just kind of sweep it away. We'll bevel this edge for us, though, so it'll look a little bit more natural. Yeah. Now we're going to smooth everything. I can't see the screen because the light is too bright in my face. Smooth. And then we'll turn on Auto Smooth 30. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. We have an issue here where it is just a little bit awkward in terms of how it collides. So what we're going to do is cut here. And then we'll just massage these elements here. I can't get the camera to do what I want. There we are. Perfect. No, wait. That's not right. It's the next set down. I don't need that one. If we then just massage this so that it is not in the way, I think we need to create another cut, don't we? Sorry for falling silent. My brain stopped working. It happens. It happens. So we're going to want to crisp up this edge some. So we'll just grab it. Oh, that's a 45-degree angle, or 60-degree angle. So we're going to want to scale it in towards, like this. Not that far. And then we'll want to make it so that this is a crisp edge, right? Sharp. We've got an errant little piece here. Just massage that until it feels right. Yeah, I'm not convinced that that's going to hold up, but I like the idea. So let's go ahead and unwrap it. UV unwrap. And then we will want to assign some materials to it. So right now everything is hull, which is fine for now. But we're going to want to make it so that everything is a little bit better than that. So fire. And then we're going to want to add in some heavy hull stuff. Including here. Yeah, more or less. And then we'll want some more heavy hull. We'll use it to mask the parts that we don't like. Doop. 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 And that's probably fine. And lastly, I think that we're going to want this to be heavy hull. Not the insides, though. The insides are not supposed to be heavy hull. That would be a little bit strange. Yeah, kind of stylish. All right, so let's go ahead and make it, right? So the first thing we're going to want to do is add in a mirror modifier with an x-axis and clipping turned on. And that'll create our mirror, but we're going to want to delete the excess because these are no longer of any value, so just delete them. And then we're going to want to apply that mirror modifier, and then we're going to want to start the duplication. Doop, doop, bonk. There we go. And there you have it. You have a chandelier style engine element. And I wanted to test it out to make sure it didn't look too terrible. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible. And if you rotate it by 30 degrees, you can attach another one above it, and you can see that they just don't have any problems with the fact that they are like this. You can also scale them up or whatever. We can do whatever we need to. I'm just sort of exploring because I'm so burned out. But let's go ahead and see how it looks in our Unity universe, and then we'll stop. Okay, so let's put in the correct materials. I should probably set it up so they always have the correct materials and auto import, but I don't have it set up like that. There we go. So you can see that just with the random UV unwrap, we ended up with, it's always a crapshoot, and this one is a little bit strange looking, but it's bearable. Either way, hopefully you can see how the ship might start to look. So if we had something like this, we've got this nose piece up here, but then we'll go ahead and just duplicate that nose piece. And then we'll scale it up. Because kinda you'll end up with something that looks a little bit more like this, right? Just for a sketching's sake. And then here, this guy down here. Hello. this guy right here. You scale one of them up too, right? And that was something like this. And then one above it. And you can sort of see how it's supposed to end up looking. There'd be other stuff in the middle, like docking clamps and stuff, but I'm just playing around. I doubt I'll use this in the final game. I'm kind of committed to the way I've got it running already. But these sorts of radial looking ships are kind of neat. Only problem with them is, from a standpoint of interior design, it's very hard to see when you're looking from a side view or whatever. If you're looking from above, it's very easy to see because you'll see like just, you know, room. But then you can only see one layer at a time. And once you look from the side, they become quite deep. So, you know, you've got a room here, and then you've got a room on the far side that you can't really see, and then you've got two rooms lined up right behind each other. And even if you slant them, you run into the problem where if there's more than one layer, you end up with a lot of overlap, and it's very, very hard to deal with. That's why for my games, I generally use pistol-shaped ships, because that kind of longer, thinner shape lets you look from the side without as much difficulty. Obviously, there are limits, like if you're doing a carrier or something, it doesn't really matter how you lay it out. There's going to be a lot of floors. In those cases, what you do is you have large internal spaces, and you have the tight network of rooms aligned along the edges or in small clusters so that you can see just the small elements rather than sheets of habitable rooms just undistinguished from each other. But that's a little harder to do with this. I could do something like that where like just like a ring of rooms around the edge or something, but you still hit the same problem where looking at it from the side makes it so that they overlap too much. Anyway, that's it. I will see all of you folks on Wednesday. I did release a new version of this game. Not that this is me goofing off. I did release a new version of the game that this is currently inside of. If you wanted to go over and take a look, it's still very, very early, but you can fly around and buy stuff. I will see all of you, or some of you, on Wednesday. Thank you for your time. Mifa says P-shaped. Well, I'll take him at his word.